My Chevy now.
See your local Chevrolet Geo dealer.
Newswatch 16, Election Night, Tuesday at 7. All you need to know all night long.
Bill Clinton, Ross Perot. Do they have the best solutions to America's problems? The answer is no. Dr. John Hagelin is a world-renowned scientist. He's running for president with the Natural Law Party. He's offering proven solutions to the nation's problems. Veteran NBC News correspondent Peter Hackus interviews Dr. Hagelin.
Political experts are saying they are seeing and hearing more turmoil in this country than they can ever remember in any previous presidential campaign. People are worried and upset. They're even upset with the three major, so-called major candidates, Bush, Clinton, and Perot. Well, tonight, we'll meet the presidential candidate of a major third party in this presidential race. He's Dr. John Hagelin, and he heads the Natural Law Party. Dr. Hagelin, what is the Natural Law Party, and what can you do for America that the so-called three major candidates cannot do?
Peter, the Natural Law Party is the nation's fastest-growing political party. It stands for a more reliable, scientific basis to government. We've heard a lot from the other candidates about the problems of our nation, problems of rising crime, spiraling health costs, pollution, declining education, unemployment, and a stagnating economy. What we haven't heard about are solutions. As a scientist, I know there are simple, proven solutions to these and other problems we face as a nation. The Natural Law Party was founded to bring the most up-to-date, scientifically proven solutions to bear immediately in government.
Now, you mentioned the economy, and this is, of course, on everyone's mind. What can you do in the way of solutions to the economic problems that we really have?
Well, the most powerful fiscal action the government can take to stimulate the economy, to provide a basis for economic growth, to put an end to unemployment and the declining standard of living, is to cut taxes significantly for individuals and for businesses. The problem is, how do you cut taxes responsibly? That means without adding to the budget deficit, without cutting essential services. The Natural Law Party has the programs in health care, in crime prevention, etc., that will save our nation hundreds of billions of dollars of precious resources, allow the government to eliminate the budget deficit, cut taxes significantly, and promote better services across the nation. If you can really do this, and of course it takes new knowledge and new programs to do so, you can propel the economy into such a growth phase that we will see an end to unemployment and the declining standard of living now and for the future.
Dr. Hagelin, one of the big factors, at least as I see it in this campaign, has been health care reform. Everybody talks about health care reform. What will your party do in that area?
Peter, we're facing a serious health crisis. We spend $800 billion per year on health. That's predicted to double in the next 6 years. So the Natural Law Party offers prevention, prevention-oriented health education, prevention-oriented natural medicines, which have been shown through extensive scientific research to promote better health and to cut health costs by 50 to 70%. We can save $400 billion per year as a nation on health through the most up-to-date knowledge of preventive medicine.
And how do you plan to implement this program?
We start with the nation's Medicaid and Medicare programs. Through a simple 3-evening course on prevention, we can provide basic knowledge of nutrition, exercise, effective stress management, domestic and occupational safety, etc., knowledge that will allow people to take better care of their own health, enjoy better health, and cut health utilization dramatically. We can save $108 billion in Medicaid and Medicare through the implementation of prevention, and on the basis of that savings, we can open up eligibility to Medicaid to the 35 million Americans who currently don't qualify for Medicaid, but who can't afford the high cost of private medical insurance. So we're the only political party who can offer health care for all at a net cost savings to the nation.
How does your plan benefit the average American who is not on either Medicare or Medicaid?
What we'd like to do is we'd like to open up eligibility to this revitalized Medicaid program to middle and upper income families. They would pay for that coverage, but they would get a very competitive rate due to the savings realized through prevention. What that would do is it would motivate the private health insurance companies and private health providers to incorporate prevention into their own programs in order to remain cost competitive with the government. Because the private sector is bound to do this more efficiently and more effectively than the federal government, I believe that within a year, the private sector will become the principal provider of high-quality health care, emphasizing prevention. That way, we can introduce prevention throughout the country, promote better health, and bring the nation's health bill down for the entire country.
One of the big problems on the minds of most people in this country, whether they live in big cities, small towns, or rural areas, has to do with crime. What would you and your party do to try to alleviate some of the criminal problems?
Well, I agree. Crime is a serious crisis in this nation. We have the highest percentage of our citizens in jail of any country in the world. 85% of crime is committed by repeat offenders. That means people leaving the prisons who find their way back into the prisons. In other words, rehabilitation is a failure in this country. The Natural Law Party therefore supports proven, effective rehabilitation programs that work. Programs that have been used in maximum security prisons already in California, Vermont, Massachusetts, and have had a dramatic effect in reducing the rate of return to prisons. The Transcendental Meditation Program, for example, has been shown to cut stress in those highly stressed environments, restore balance in the physiology and psychology, and as a result of that, people leaving the prisons don't come back to prison. Other countries have adopted this program nationally because of its effectiveness here, but our government so far has not done so. We could save $80 billion per year in crime costs and untold pain and suffering if we just adopted this one simple rehabilitation program.
Dr. Hagelin, if TM has been so successful, as you say, in certain prisons, perhaps on an experimental basis and in other countries, why is it the federal government hasn't adopted transcendental meditation as an official program to fight crime? Also, while you're at it, you might want to add a line or two to explain to some people who might not be familiar with it, what is transcendental meditation?
Well, Peter, transcendental meditation is a very effective and simple procedure to cut stress. It provides rest deeper than sleep and restores balance in the physiology and in the psychology. As a result of that program, people leaving the prisons don't commit further crimes and don't return to prisons. It hasn't been supported by government so far in this country, I think due to fear of political criticism. Now, the Natural Law Party believes that fear and leadership are contrary principles, and that when a government is elected to office and entrusted with the responsibility of governing the nation, it is the responsibility of that government to bring to the attention of the American people programs that work. And there are many good programs, from sustainable agriculture to effective education to prison reform, that are working today but are being ignored or underfunded by government so far for purely political reasons.
We've heard you speak about prevention in healthcare. Is there some way of preventing a person who is not really a criminal from becoming a criminal, some other kind of prevention?
That's true. I think the best defense against crime, Peter, is to reach people before they get into the prisons. And the best way to do this is through education. Education is not effective in this country. We have 25% of our high school students dropping out, as compared to 2% in Japan. We need education that holds the interest of our students, that is perceived as relevant to the students' own lives, so that they don't lose interest, don't drop out of school, because the dropouts become the principal targets for inner-city crime and drug abuse. So we need education that develops the full creativity and intelligence of our students. Such education will naturally be perceived as relevant to a student's own life. Unfortunately today, with existing educational programs, real growth stops at adolescence. Growth of intelligence freezes at the age of 13, 14, or 15 years. We're said to use 5 to 10% of our mental potential, and I think it's naive to hope that we can solve the major problems of our nation without making better use of our nation's greatest resource, which is our human resource, the unlimited creativity of our 250 million citizens. There are educational programs, curriculum innovations that are working today in the inner cities, in our colleges and universities, that develop intelligence and creativity, not just to the age of 13, but throughout life. So we need better programs, not more spending. We've increased our spending for the past 9 years. Spending on education has doubled in real terms. Despite that, last year we had the lowest test scores in our nation's history on the verbal SATs. What we need, again, is more up-to-date educational programs and curriculum innovations that work. The Natural Law Party promotes those programs.
We've heard a lot in talking politics and political solutions and so on. I'd like to stop that for just a moment. We'll get back to it. But I want to find out about John Hagelin. Who are you? Where did you come from? How did you get interested in politics and running for president?
I am a research scientist. My area of study is quantum physics, unified field theories. If you wish, I'm an expert on natural law, the laws of nature, the laws of physics that govern this immensely complex universe without problem. And what we would like to bring in this new party is more of this intelligence and efficiency of nature's government into the realm of man-made government.
Dr. John Hagelin is a world-renowned scientist who received his Ph.D. in physics from Harvard University. Dr. Hagelin is an expert in the most advanced area of scientific research, unified field theories of quantum physics. Dr. Hagelin has explored deep new levels of scientific knowledge. He has researched profound new scientific solutions to the problems of society, including rising crime, spiraling health costs, declining education, pollution, and a weak economy. In recognition of his groundbreaking work, Dr. Hagelin was recently named winner of the prestigious Kilby Award. The award citation described Dr. Hagelin as a physicist in the tradition of Einstein, Bohr, Jeans, and Eddington. Dr. Hagelin is bringing a reliable foundation to our government by offering proven new programs to solve the nation's problems.
Back to politics once again. I remember in your discussion of economics, there were a number of problems that were approached and solutions were offered. I don't think I heard you say anything about something that's on everyone's mind, and that is a thing called that massive deficit. Can you and your party get rid of that deficit, and if so, how?
I think we're the only party that is competent to eliminate the deficit. It was very sobering for me and 100 million other Americans the other night to hear the main party candidates, President Bush and Governor Clinton, talk about that subject. They promised that they could cut the budget deficit by 50% after 5 years. This is the most optimistic statement said before 100 million viewers. Even if we held them to that promise, that means we're going to add another $1.5 trillion to the debt, and still growing rapidly after 5 years. The Natural Law Party has cost-effective solutions to problems like spiraling health costs, rising crime, energy dependence on foreign oil, etc. Solutions that can save our federal government $700 billion per year. On the basis of that type of savings through the most up-to-date knowledge and programs, the government can eliminate its $400 billion budget deficit and still cut taxes and still promote better services for the country. Obviously, to do this requires new knowledge, new programs, cost-effective solutions to the nation's problems. My gripe with the other political parties is that they have not done their homework. Solutions to these and other problems exist that could conserve hundreds of billions of dollars of our nation's resources. But these solutions have been overlooked or ignored by government so far for purely political reasons.
Next question, and it affects you severely because you are a third-party presidential candidate. What would your party do to reform political campaigning?
Well, the most important thing, Peter, is that we immediately put an end to the loophole known as soft money or soft contributions and eliminate or severely limit the contributions from PACs, from special interest groups. We need to make government accountable to the people. Right now, if you're a senator, an incumbent running for re-election, you have to raise perhaps $20 million if you live in California to conduct an effective campaign. That means you've got to raise $10,000 per day, every day you're in office for 6 years. Now, that kind of money does not come from the voters back home who voted you into Washington. That kind of money comes from Washington, from special interest groups, from PACs, and as a result of those contributions to their re-election campaigns, our elected representatives become accountable to special interest groups. We need to restore accountability to the people. All of the good programs I've talked about so far, and many, many more, will never come to pass as long as government remains accountable to special interests. The S&L crisis, a perfect example of government accountable to special interest groups. This $500 billion disaster was bought and paid for by a powerful S&L lobby. They put through Congress legislation to deregulate the industry. That resulted in the ultimate collapse of the S&L industry, which will cost every taxpayer $3,600. We therefore would like to remove the clout from these powerful lobbies, and the best way to do that is to limit their financial contributions to campaigns.
One of the questions that the so-called major party candidates have all been asked, and I think I should ask it of you. If you're elected president, how do you plan to do whatever you'll have to do to put your ideas to work through Congress?
Well, I think we have three weapons we can bring to bear on Congress to be sure legislation that is good for the country passes. Number one, we have 115 candidates running for U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives on the ballot in 32 states. If we even had a half a dozen people in the Senate, that would have a very powerful effect. Right now, the Senate is divided 50-50 among Republicans and Democrats. The votes are often split along party lines. If we had a small group of people who were willing to put their country ahead of their party, that would be enough to steer the direction of legislation in almost every case in the direction of what is good for the country. Number two, if I were elected president, it would be perceived as an extraordinary mandate, unprecedented in our political history. When the voice of the American public speaks loud enough, Congress listens. And finally, through campaign election finance reform, as we discussed, we can make government automatically more sensitive to the people, more accountable to the people, and less accountable to special interest groups. Once we've achieved that, we'll see a much better quality of legislation making its way through the political process.
I must ask this question with regard to candidates. Any women? Minorities?
More than a third of our candidates are women candidates, and almost half of our candidates represent women and minority candidates. This is, I think, the highest percentage of any party in the country, and it's not because we've actively sought the participation of this or that group. It's because we offer a platform that is so universally enriching and comprehensive that it has naturally attracted a very broad base of support. What is a cause for a great deal of optimism for me is that wherever we have gone, to student rallies, to Perot supporters, to inner city churches, to Native Americans, doesn't matter, everyone who has read the Natural Law Party platform, everyone who has heard from any of our candidates feels that this is the politics of the future, the common sense party. My only concern is that if it's good enough for the future, it's good enough for today. There is no rational reason to postpone proven solutions to our nation's problems.
What about women's rights?
Well, we believe that the Constitution of this country guarantees rights for every American citizen. And we would support whatever additional legislation was deemed necessary to guarantee those constitutional rights for women and for minorities. At the same time, I think that the legislation of equality is a stopgap measure at best. Ultimately, we would like to hit at the root of that inequality, which is prejudice, bias, bigotry, fear, through education. Education that expands comprehension, develops moral reasoning and higher states of consciousness. On that basis, we can really eliminate prejudice and inequality at its roots.
Another matter of interest to many, if not all, Americans is the air we breathe, the water we drink, and other problems that we see in the environment. How does your party attack some of those problems?
We have a very strong environmental platform. We would like to implement immediately existing energy conservation technologies that could cut our use of fossil fuels in half, end our dependence on foreign oil, and provide a more environmentally sound basis to our national economy. We would also promote the development of renewable energy sources, wind and solar. Wind in particular has become cost competitive with fossil fuels. We could save $46 billion per year in energy costs through the latest conservation and renewable technologies. Another related area is agriculture. 78% of American farmers would like to switch immediately to more sustainable practices. Practices that don't erode the nation's soil base, which has already dropped from 18 to 8 inches in the last 100 years and is predicted to all but disappear in the next generation. They would like to switch away from chemical fertilizers and pesticides which leave poisonous residues in the foods that we eat and the water supply. But the farmers complain that the USDA does not provide the necessary knowledge or support to make that transition. This is an important area where our government lags the desires of its people to move in the direction of more environmentally sound, life-supporting technologies. The Natural Law Party would promote sustainable agriculture to provide a more lucrative and environmentally sound basis for our nation's farmers.
The Natural Law Party is America's fastest-growing political party. The party was founded on April 20th to bring proven new solutions to America's problems. Dr. John Hagelin has campaigned across America with his wife, Margaret, and his vice presidential running mate, Dr. Mike Tompkins. They are bringing to the American people new ideas and scientifically proven programs, an entirely new basis to national administration. To receive a free platform of the Natural Law Party, call now 1-800-641-3000. Make your vote count this year. Vote for solutions. Vote Dr. John Hagelin for president.
You've given us interesting answers to a number of serious problems as you and your party see it, having to do with domestic affairs. Let's look overseas. What is your position on foreign policy?
Peter, we need to see an immediate shift in U.S. foreign policy from one which is based principally on military aid to one which is based more on the exportation of U.S. knowledge, American know-how in such areas as business administration, agriculture, energy and environmental technologies, technologies that will allow more countries to stand on their own feet, to become self-sufficient financially. This more life-supporting type of foreign policy would go a long way towards elimination of poverty and hunger and create a more affluent and harmonious family of nations. And the U.S. would be the first beneficiary of a more affluent and prosperous family of nations.
Which brings me to a kind of crucial question. What do you think are your chances, and what do you hope to achieve?
We have to realize that more than half of the eligible voters in this country have not yet decided for whom to vote. Many who have decided for whom to vote are doing so as a lesser of evils. The basic problem has been that people have not been aware of the fact that there are viable third-party candidates with solutions. As a result of this and other shows, and the rapidly growing base of support for the Natural Law Party, I believe we can win this election. And there are two types of victory. A second type of victory we are ensured of, we've already begun to enjoy, and that is through our efforts, through our campaign, to successfully inject into the mainstream of politics new ideas and new solutions that work. If we can educate the American people that there are simple, proven solutions to the nation's problems, they will in turn insist that their own candidate, whether it's Bill Clinton, George Bush, Ross Perot, or whomever, will adopt these solutions or risk losing their support. So one way or the other, we are going to solve this nation's problems. To do that, we need to have the support of the American people.
Dr. Hagelin, a lot of people are having a lot of problems, and a lot of people are in pain. But I think those who are in most pain are those who are out of work, the unemployed. Do you have a solution to their problem?
Yes, we do. I think we have the only viable solution. If you can put the economy into a growth phase and keep it there, that will put an end to unemployment and the declining standard of living. A growth phase means there are always more and better jobs opening up at any moment than there are old jobs being rendered obsolete. But how do you put the economy into a growth phase? You do it by cutting taxes deeply and responsibly. Responsibly means without adding to the budget deficit and without cutting essential services. We can do that. We can cut taxes because we have cost-effective solutions to problems of spiraling health costs, rising crime, energy conservation, etc., and only through such programs, which will save our federal government hundreds of billions of dollars of the nation's precious resources, can the government responsibly cut taxes, stimulate the economy, and provide jobs for everyone in our country.
Dr. Hagelin, we've heard a number of interesting thoughts expressed here tonight. I think perhaps the American people might be wondering amongst themselves, where have you been in the last few months?
Well, Peter, remember, the Natural Law Party is only 6 months old. The first few months of our existence was spent in research, researching from across the country the best field-tested solutions to all of our nation's problems. Since that time, we've been leading a very active campaign. I and my vice presidential running mate, Dr. Mike Tompkins, have been to all 50 states, meeting with people across the country. It is hard to get media coverage when you are a third-party candidate, but despite that, we have become the fastest-growing political party in the country, with the support base and with the ideas to solve our nation's problems.
Dr. Hagelin, I'm afraid we're running out of time. So, as we've heard from some of the other candidates in this pre-election period, you now have an opportunity to address the American people with a synopsis of your party's plans for the future.
Thank you, Peter. Only a new seed will yield a new crop. The same old knowledge, the same old programs, the same old political slogans that have failed to solve the nation's problems for decades will not magically begin to work now in 1992. It takes new knowledge, new programs, new attitudes, new expertise in Washington to turn the country around. I'm not a career politician. I have training in the scientific method. My expertise is in determining what works for the country and what does not work. I will gather together the best ideas and best talents of all political parties to work together in the spirit of a truly national government, not a party government, but a government that can serve the interests of all American citizens. Together, we can rise above bipartisan gridlock that has stood in the way of proven solutions to the nation's problems. Together, we can restore accountability of the government to the people. Join me in this great effort to revitalize America and to restore the American dream to every American citizen.
The Natural Law Party believes the nation will prosper only if the laudable goals of all political parties and groups are satisfied. Therefore, we will establish a truly national government that integrates the scientifically proven programs of the Natural Law Party with the best ideas and talents of all parties. Make your vote count on November 3rd. Vote Dr. John Hagelin for president and send a strong message to Washington that now is the time to adopt proven solutions to America's problems. To receive a Natural Law Party platform, call 1-800-641-3000 and pledge your support to revive the American dream for everyone. Or write the Natural Law Party, 51 West Washington, Fairfield, Iowa, 52556. This year, don't vote for more conflict and government gridlock. Only a new seed will yield a new crop. Vote for America's fastest-growing political party. Vote for solutions. Vote Dr. John Hagelin for president. And remember, if you don't see Dr. Hagelin's name listed on your ballot, be sure to write in Dr. John Hagelin for president and Dr. Mike Tompkins for vice president. Be sure to look for our 2-page ad in Monday's USA Today. We'll need your support on November 3rd.